Welcome everyone to WarThunder Histories, episode 11. Today we're looking at arguably the most feared tank of World War II, the Panzerkampfwagen 6, better known as the Tiger, primarily the Tiger H1. As always, we'll talk about its design and development, service history, notable combat action, and of course how it plays in-game. I hope you enjoy. As early as 1937, German industry had begun work on a number of heavy tank designs. This was even with the mindset that the current Panzer III and Panzer IV would be more than adequate for the upcoming battles. This belief was cemented after the invasion of Poland in 1939 and the invasion of France in 1940, where Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs were used to great effect. It wasn't until Operation Barbarossa in 1941, which was the invasion of Russia, where the Panzer III and Panzer IV started to encounter Soviet T-34s and KV-1s, which, at the time, the KV-1 was one of the most armoured tanks in the world. The relatively small caliber guns on the Panzers were unable to effectively deal with Soviet tanks. This led to a design specification for a 45-ton heavy tank armed with a KWK-36 88mm gun, good armour, speed and manoeuvrability. Porsche initially began working on a design but had very quickly run into issues, primarily the vehicle's mobility not being up to par, along with having the tendency to randomly catch fire while driving up small inclines. This vehicle has become known as the Porsche Tiger or Tiger P. Henschel had also begun work on their own design under the direction of Dr. Erwin Aders. Both designs were ready for inspection by Hitler himself on his birthday, April 20th, 1942. Although Ferdinand Porsche had a close friendship with Hitler, the Henschel design ultimately won primarily due to its superior mobility. Even though the Porsche design was rejected, they were so confident in their design that they'd actually already started production. Interestingly, the hulls of the Porsche tanks were made into tank destroyers known as the Ferdinand, with one fully completed vehicle becoming a command tank. Even more ironically, these vehicles still continue to suffer from the same catastrophic failures the initial Porsche design had. An example of this is that I've read at the Battle of Kursk, Ferdinands were mostly lost to engine fires before they'd even entered combat, having to be abandoned by their crews. Moving back to the Henschel design, officially the Henschel design was named this very long word I'm not even going to try and say. It was referred to as the Tiger from March of 1942. The Henschel design was ordered in production in August of 1942 with an initial production rate of 25 tanks per month, peaking in April of 1944 with a rate of 104 tanks per month. Only 1,347 were produced in total. For some comparison, between July of 1942 and January of 1944, 6,748 M4 Shermans were produced, and that only includes the M4 variant itself and not the M4A1, M4A2, any of the 76 Shermans. I'm just talking about the M4 variant itself. The Tiger was also very expensive, costing around 250,000 Reichmarks. In comparison, the Panther only cost 117,000 Reichmarks. Adjusted for inflation, this was around $1.3 million in today's money. An M1A1 Abrams costs around $4.3 million. And that's only the vehicle itself, not including the gun and radios. Upon its introduction, the Tiger was the most powerful tank in the world. Armed with the infamous 88mm gun that had already proved itself in both an anti-air and anti-tank role, this coupled with being mounted on one of the most heavily armoured gun platforms to date, it was almost impenetrable to most allied anti-tank guns. The Tiger's combat debut was in August of 1942 around Leningrad. 4 Tigers were sent single file through very swampy terrain. Unfortunately, all 4 Tigers ended up becoming disabled. Interestingly, 3 of these were later recovered as none of them had actually been destroyed nor was their armour penetrated. After this very poor debut, Tiger schools were opened in France and Germany with tactics being quickly developed. By the end of 1942, Tigers were deployed to Russia, North Africa and Italy. Eventually, there would be 10 Army heavy tank battalions with Tigers, 3 SS heavy tank battalions and 1 training battalion with handfuls of Tigers in other units. The Tiger struck fear into enemy tank crews, where for example in Russia, Tigers destroyed unthinkable amounts of equipment, and where Soviet tanks would withdraw at the sight of a Tiger. The Tiger had similar effects on Allied tankers in North Africa, where it was dubbed as Tigerphobia, and General Montgomery actually banned the mentioning of Tigers in official documenting and reporting. On February 1st, 1943, the British were able to capture a relatively intact Tiger and perform tests, to only be alarmed by the results, concluding that the Tiger was an extremely good and well-protected gun platform. A notable action of the Tiger was in Normandy in 1944, where a Tiger under the command of Tiger ace Michael Wittmann was able to destroy 25 tanks, 14 half-tracks and 14 Bren gun carriers in only a few short minutes without any serious support. As the war went on, the Germans began to lose air superiority, and so Tigers were used in mostly a static defensive role. This was also in part due to the dwindling fuel supplies and to reduce the need for maintenance due to mechanical failures. Throughout the Tiger's career, maintenance and reliability was a pressing issue. Due to its complex design, access to damaged components was often very difficult, especially when in field conditions. An example of this is the overlapping road wheels, where it would take an extra time to remove the front road wheels to access the back ones. Also, due to the Tiger's enormous weight, many bridges were too weak to be able to support them. At 57 tons, it was also almost impossible to recover them without multiple recovery vehicles or another Tiger. The Tiger's size also made it very difficult to transport, requiring special rail cars and having to change the normal combat tracks that measured in at 720mm wide to smaller transport tracks that were 520mm wide, which crews obviously did not enjoy. The overlapping road wheels also caused some pretty serious issues, particularly in Russia, where they would get clogged up with mud, snow and ice and often cause them to throw track. Although the Tiger had some major issues mechanically, it had two significant strengths. Obviously, its very powerful 88mm gun that was able to penetrate 112mm of steel armour at 1,400 meters, and its rolled homogeneous nickel steel plate armour, which was much less brittle than regular steel armour and much harder. The Tiger didn't run into any serious issues in combat until the introduction of the Sherman Firefly and T-34-85 with their high-velocity guns in 1943. Before then, Allied tankers would watch in horror as their low-velocity guns would simply bounce off the front plates of Tigers. The Tiger was powered by a Maybach HL230 P45 V12 engine, providing around 690 horsepower. The vehicle had a maximum road range of 121 miles with a cross-country range of only 68 miles, being able to reach a top speed just over 28 miles an hour on road, which was only just slower than the Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs before them. The Tiger served from its introduction in 1942 to the final days of the war in 1945. If you would like to see a working Tiger, the Bovington Tank Museum in England has the only original working Tiger in the world. Tiger 131, which was captured by the British in April 1943, almost completely intact. It was paraded around Britain as a war trophy, and it still holds the battle scars it received in 1943. Tiger 131 has also starred in the movie Fury in 2014. So how does the Tiger H1 specifically perform in-game? The Tiger H1 is a rank 3 battle rating 5.3 German heavy tank. There are also two very rare premium Tigers which I can't name and I can't show you because I don't have them, and the Tiger E, which is what you're seeing now at 5.7. Crewed by 5, a driver, gunner, loader, commander and assistant driver. The Tiger H1, as mentioned before, is armed with the 88mm KWK 36L56 gun. With access to 92 rounds, there is also one 7.92mm MG34 mounted coaxially. The Tiger has a reload rate, stock, of 10.4 seconds and 7.4 seconds with an aced crew. The gun can also be elevated from -8 degrees to +16 degrees and can have a max turret traverse speed of 12 degrees per second. For a heavy tank, the Tiger has good mobility and very reasonable top speed at 28 miles per hour on road. In terms of armour, both the Tiger's upper front plate and lower front plate are both 102mm thick and basically flat, with the gun mantlet being around 140mm thick, the lower side of the hull at 62mm thick, with the upper sides of the hull at 82mm thick, and the turret sides and rear at 86mm thick with spots covered in additional track and pieces of metal. At 5.3, the Tiger is likely to encounter mostly Shermans and T-34-85s, which are relatively easy to kill, but know that if you're not careful, they'll kill you just as easily. The best tactic for a Tiger is to sit far back, avoid towns and villages where you can be flanked easily, snipe across long sight lines where it's easy to cover your own flanks. Like I say, the Tiger has excellent armour but it's not invincible. It's important to angle slightly to maximise its effectiveness. I personally recommend bringing around 35 to 40 rounds of just AP. Whether or not you have the good AP or the really bad AP, just stick to AP, as personally I don't see a point in running out of ammo, plus the heat and HE rounds are completely useless. Try to avoid close range engagements, as I mentioned before. Tanks that you face will have an easy time penetrating your armour at close range especially, and it's not difficult to outrun the Tiger's turret traverse as it's very slow, plus your reload rate is slow on top of that. Overall, the Tiger is a very easy vehicle to use for some basic thinking and can be used to great effect. I personally enjoy the E and the H1 in game as they have given me some great cross the map kills, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and of course if you'd like to see a vehicle or a battle on the series, let me know as well. And of course if you liked today's video, leave me a like, and if you're new here, consider subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one.